Going.
Hey, what's up, Chris? How you doing?
Good. How are you, Justin?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How's your weekend going?
Dude, it's taking it easy. Thank heavens this weekend. How about you?
Good. Yeah, same thing. We do Easter weekend. So we got
Yeah,
family coming over tomorrow and then
nice.
yeah, so we just been kind of picking up, cleaning up, just kind of getting the whole
Same.
weekend ready for everybody to show up. So, yeah.
Right. My girlfriend and I are making like 100 deviled eggs tonight for Easter tomorrow. So I completely get you. Yeah,
And they'll all be gone in 10 minutes. No.
it'll be gone in 10 freaking minutes, dude. Because deviled eggs are the bomb.
Oh my God, they're the best. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
we've always kind of kept deviled eggs in a very it's like spring and summer. Like I know
Yeah.
people do deviled eggs for like Thanksgiving, and I'm just like, okay,
I've never
but
done it at Thanksgiving. It's always
thank
been
you,
like a spring and summer thing. Yeah.
thank you. And that's one thing that I've always like thought was like, okay, I guess that's just their tradition, but for us, it's like
Yeah,
potato salad and deviled eggs. I don't
totally.
know, spring, summer, just kind of leave that in that little bubble.
All the food that's like yellow and white mixed together tends to be just like a spring and summer thing. Yeah,
I think it is, and
totally.
that's just like it's one of those things. It's like if it's got to be like refrigerated, I don't know. Like I've always thought,
Totally.
like, if it's got to be baked in the oven, like keep that for like you know,
Oh yeah,
you know,
like a warm food that's comforting is very wintry, and
very
then just like something a little bit chill, a little bit like uh on the healthier side tends to be like a spring and summer thing. Totally.
exactly. Well,
Yeah,
Chris, I appreciate your time. Thank you so
of
much.
course, dude. I'm excited.
First grade fight club. You kind of got a couple things. You got your social media. You
Hmm.
got Chicken and Vinyl Forever, which I'll post the link in the description for everybody to follow you on Instagram with that. Amateur Core Kids podcast. Are you kind of like a guest,
Um,
or are you part of that?
so I am part of that, but that doesn't need to be brought up. We're taking a break for a while,
Okay,
so
that's cool. That's
yeah,
all I need to know.
no need to bring that one up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine. And then, of course, Chicken and Waffles Forever is your Instagram handle. Yeah, between
and
that and
TikTok as
First Grade.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, dude, thanks for your time, man. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course, I'm
Let
excited.
people know what you got going on with First Grade Fight Club. Anything new in the works? And I think you got
Yep,
you got a show coming up in April 25th.
correct. Yep.
Yeah, just let people. I know you just put out last year your third full length. I have killed 1,000 men. Are you
Yeah.
working on anything new?
I certainly am. It's life's a little bit busy right now, so I'm not
Sure.
like as um far into the next album as I want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, First Grade Fight Club is something I've been doing for about 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
And it's a fun little just side project that I do just for kicks and giggles.
Yep.
I play cybergrind,
Mhm.
which is an electronic form of grindcore, and it is a good excuse to just be like ridiculous and use a mix of heavy music and humor
Yeah.
to put whatever I feel like out into the world. Um, I have 4 albums. My first one is technically a demo, but I call it an album anyway. And like you said, Justin, I put my fourth one out just oh my gosh, when was it? I want to say October of last year.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, October,
Oh, cool.
and I just love making music, and so a lot of the magic of grindcore is that my songs don't have to be more than like 20 seconds. If I want them to be long, I totally can. However, I don't have to. That's the magic of heavy music is you don't have to like there's no boundaries, there's no rules. You can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want.
Right.
And then yeah, live music. I have a show on April 25th here in Utah, and then I've got, of course, more shows coming up on the horizon. Couple festivals this year I'm playing, so all kinds of cool stuff.
Dude, that sounds like fun. That sounds
Yeah,
cool. Tell me about because we'll kind of go into where you
yeah,
started and kind of how your music
yeah,
kind of
totally.
varies. Why cybergrind?
That is such a good question. So, cybergrind is a style of music I was very familiar with in the 2000s. For those who don't know, listening, cybergrind is very heavy into like internet culture of the mid 2000s. There was a lot of bands that were putting out music just on like sketchy websites on MySpace and stuff like that. And then the style kind of died for a while, and it became very unpopular until the mid 2010s, where two bands, Thought Crime and Blind Equation, were taking the style of cybergrind and making a modern version of it. So when I was in bands growing up. I played the guitar and the drums. And so in high school I was in like a pop punk band and I was in a metalcore band, and I was in a folk band. um, and then I've had the itch to make music for a while, but I don't know. Like I struggled really hard in my. I live in Salt Lake City, in the local scene, just trying to find like the right people to be in a band with, because it was like I'd find someone that was super talented but didn't have the time, or they'd be like, "This is not a good time for me," or I'd find somebody that we clicked very well and they wanted to be in a band, but they actually couldn't play anything. So it was like, I don't know, the timing could never work out. And then I have several friends that are cybergrind artists and they are solo.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know, man, solo stuff intimidates me,
Sure.
but I'll give it a shot. And with cybergrind, one reason I gravitated toward it so much is I do love electronic music and I love metal.
Hmm.
And there's several forms of metal where they cross over into electronic music, but not a lot of it is super like intense. You get like there's electronic metalcore out there, and there's a lot of synth heavy stuff in like industrial, all that cool stuff. But I love like super heavy music,
Sure.
and so I wanted something just insane. And the magic of cybergrind is that because it does come from the internet world,
Hmm.
it's very it's a serious art that's taken very not seriously, because the song names can be just insane.
Yeah.
The inspirations are all over the map. And the history of cybergrind is just in such a it just comes from a not serious place, and that was my instant gravitation to it. Was I was like, I want to like mix humor in. I don't want to just be, there's so many like solo black metal artists out there,
Yeah.
and that's fine,
Yeah.
but black metal is not very funny. It's very
Right.
serious, and I was like, I'd rather do something I can be funny in. And then the other magic of cybergrind is that you can use the different digital music platforms on computers, on phones, whatever people are using, to really amp things up like crazy. You can use all kinds of effects and ways to alter your voice and alter the music. Um, and just also the intensity.
Sure.
Cybergrind's very intense. It's very, very high tempo, and I love that.
I love it, dude. And it's one of my,
Yeah,
it's one I'm slowly getting familiar with.
yeah.
You were actually one of the one artists that a lot of people sent you to me, like through Instagram was like, hey, check this guy
Oh,
out.
that's so sweet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I know. My brother did it. A bunch of my friends are like, check this guy out. You're gonna love him. I know you guys are kind of right up there on that same level. And
Oh,
I did
good.
like a solo project, so I understand where
Okay.
I was a drummer for bands, and then I was like, okay, I'm not gelling well with certain bands, so I was like, I like
Right.
electronic music, so that was my first step in was dabbling in synthesizers and stuff like that,
Totally.
and then but I was not happy with singing. Like I tried it once, and I was like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't feel right with that one, so it's all just instrumental, and I understand where it's like you want to do because that was kind of my dilemma where it's like I like making electronic music,
Yeah.
but I don't take a lot of things seriously. Like I've always just
Yeah.
kind of been a goofball and crazy and outgoing. So musically, I was trying, and I think there's only like maybe one album. No, there's a few where a lot of it's just inside jokes. All the
Seriously.
songs are built around inside jokes and
Yep.
using quotes from movies that I like, and it's just
Uh-huh.
one of those things where it's like, you kind of in that struggle where you're going, oh, do I want to be an artist or do I just want to make music and just do it for fun? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
and
that's the thing, is like a lot of the super niche genres of music, you have to understand I will never make money from this and I will never be famous, but
right.
I'm gonna have like the best time doing it. And that was my goal. It's like same thing. I love music, I love making music. I'm happy doing First Grade Fight Club. I know for a fact it's not my career, and that's not where my income comes from. But it's like, but that's the magic of it. I don't have to like worry about making, maybe this isn't as popular as gonna be, or maybe it's not gonna sell as well. Whatever. I
It's
have
fun.
fun and I can do what I think is fun.
It is fun. Like it's a fun like hobby thing. I mean,
Yeah.
kudos to everybody who can make music and make money from
Seriously.
that. And I go, wow, awesome. I'm totally
Yeah.
envious. I love that. But sometimes it's just like, and you seem to have this sort of like, you got, your family life, you got, you do professional communication and public relations, and, you do, content creation and social media marketing.
Hmm.
And then you go, but I got this other band and it's just fun
Uh-huh.
and I'm letting loose. Like I love that where you can find that balance and I think that's so cool.
Oh yeah, it's in my mind, it's such like a healthy thing for me,
Yes.
because I do work in the world of like social media and public relations, and that's fun. I generally love it. I got my master's degree in it.
Yeah.
But it's genuinely so good for your brain to have like an outlet where you can just be stupid and you don't have to worry about like if I do this thing incorrectly, it's going to be a mistake or this is going to impact my income. Literally, it can be so good for your brain. Like one good example, when I very first started doing first grade fight club, I lived in this apartment complex
Mhm.
that was very expensive and I disliked it so much. That's actually why I started making music because I was in such a rough spot in my life and I just needed something.
Yep.
And so I had these upstairs neighbors that I was like, of course, I was like in the middle section, so there was someone above and someone below.
Yeah.
And these upstairs neighbors at like 1 in the morning would start vacuuming and they'd like drop cans and pans on the floor really late and they'd fight all the time. And so I would get like I'm not an angry person, and I would just get like
I'm not.
angry, angry, angry. So I was like, I'm so mad. So I wrote a song about killing them. Um, and it's called Decease and Desist. It's off the first album. And it was genuinely so good for my brain. I didn't get mad anymore because then I wrote in the song, I talk about ripping their fingers off so they can't make noise anymore. And I was like, I wrote that and then screamed it when I recorded it.
Yeah.
And then when they make noise and they be angry, I just like hum it to myself and like I'd feel all the way better. I wouldn't get mad. It's be like, it's okay. Like, each step you take, I'll cut another finger off. And so it genuinely is such a good like thing for your brain.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everybody has to make metal, but
Sure.
like I think this the act of creation where you can use it to express emotion just is so good for
Oh yeah.
like you said, that balance
Mhm.
of I have responsibilities, I have a life, I have people that depend on me, but I also want to be happy and I want to feel like my existence is something I enjoy as well.
Right. And I get
Yeah,
that where it's, because I was kind of in this like, when it came to working on music, it's just like you try and find that sort of intensity and that like,
totally,
like a therapy session or find something therapeutic where it's
totally,
like I got this, and I'm the exact same way. I'm not very angry person, but it's like I you got to have emotions and deal with emotions, and it's
oh
one of those where
absolutely,
I kind of put on the back burner and go, okay, I'll deal with that later. I don't want to do this, but I'll keep it back here and save it
yeah,
for later. And you go, okay, how can I take this and kind of unload it? And you kind of just go, okay, let's put it in the music and let's find a
totally,
way to release this sort of.
oh totally.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was in therapy for about 5 years ago for just mental health,
Pretty
and
normal,
life
yeah.
was
Mhm.
life was brutal, and
Sure.
I loved going to
Oh,
therapy.
I love
But
therapy.
one thing that I worked through with my therapist that I struggle with is growing up, I would view any emotion that wasn't happy as bad.
Yeah.
And so if I was sad, if I was angry, if I was depressed, if I was upset, I would like try to distract myself from it and say, no, find something happy.
Mhm.
And then as I became an adult, I was like, that is so unhealthy.
Oh
You
yeah.
should genuinely feel every emotion
Mhm.
and you need to find a way to understand how you feel every emotion.
Right.
And so music was such a good way for me to like channel anger because same thing, I may not be an angry person, but like you said, we all experience it.
Of
You
course.
will be angry at some point, you will be upset, you will be sad, you will be depressed. But if you can find a healthy way that you yourself like channels that or even just helps you comprehend it better instead of trying to push it away, it literally like clears all the clouds from the sky. You understand things better, you understand the world better, you understand yourself better. Yeah, it's a great way
I
to unpack things.
I think it's great. I think everybody
Yeah,
should, at least use something, of course, go to therapy. I'm all for it.
yeah,
Um,
or whatever.
figure
You got to
yourself
find
out.
something.
You got
Yeah,
to figure out your mental health. I mean, not just, your physical
absolutely,
health, and mental health is very important, but also it's like, okay, I need to find something to kind of, uh, you know, uh, be creative and kind of
totally.
get that balance in life, and I always encourage everybody, I'm like, find a hobby, do something,
Oh,
whatever it is,
anything.
do it. It's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
anything.
Yeah. Tell me about growing up in Salt Lake City, Utah. Like, start from the
Yeah,
beginning and kind of work, how you're like, you grew up. What were you listening to? Did you start off listening to your parents' music and then found your
yeah,
own place? Give me the backstory.
yeah. I got you. So I'm from Salt Lake City, just the Salt Lake City area,
Hmm.
and I grew up here. I My family music wise was kind of all over the map. I'm Mormon. Fun fact for those listening, I'm Mormon. I'm
Yep.
very happily Mormon. But I'm not typical whatsoever. I do not act like Mormon. I don't not dress like a Mormon. I do not make the music that Mormons make. But I love that. I loved being able to stand out. And so growing up, my family is also not very typical Utah people. And so we listen to a lot of like my dad loves classic rock. My mom loves like folk singers and singer songwriter people. My sister loved hip hop. My other sister loved punk rock. My brother loved classical music, and so growing up, there's just a like a cacophony of constantly different sounds. And I'm lucky that my family and I were very close in terms of also just like relationship wise. So even if I was getting into music they didn't know or very familiar with, I was still supportive. Be like, heck yeah, go for it. Listen to whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so I clung to punk rock very early when I was like about 10 years old. I got really into punk through the Ramones. The Ramones were my first favorite band. And then I shifted as naturally as one does in the year 2004 into being an emo kid.
Hmm.
Um, that was just the time, and I freaking loved it. I like my thing with music, Justin, is that I've never had a phase ever. I always consider my music tastes a snowball rolling down a
Me
hill
too.
where
Yeah.
I just gab more and more and
Right.
more. So to this day, I still listen to what I did when I was 7
Oh yeah, me
and
too.
like love it and rock. Yeah, it's the best. I've never been like I had an emo phase, I had an indie phase. No, I just listen to everything, and then if I like it, I will listen to the rest of my life.
Sure. Yeah.
So I became an emo kid, and then naturally, emo music led me to like metalcore and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
And then this was also in the golden age of the MySpace era in terms of music as well.
Yep.
So as a teenager in junior high, um, I found out, and like many, I found out that if you plug in the MySpace URL into these sketchy Russian websites, you can get every MP3 that they've uploaded to it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was downloading just terabytes of illegal music,
Hmm.
just from any band I could find. I get a very legitimate high off of music discovery,
Oh yeah,
and
me
so
too.
I would
Oh
I
yeah.
would get so excited being like, I remember the first band I ever listened to that didn't have like any kind of following
Mhm.
was Drop Dead Gorgeous out
Ooh,
of
yeah.
Colorado. When
Hmm.
they very first started out, I was like, this band is one of the coolest bands I've ever heard of. And they had like a couple hundred followers on MySpace.
Yeah.
And that was so mind blowing. And so that led me to being like, I love underground music.
Yes.
Um, and then over the years, I got really into indie music, indie rock, and then also experimental music. Very much into metal, obviously.
Mhm.
Metal, and then I don't know, I just same thing. I've never like jumped from phase to phase. I will just keep adding more and more onto it.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then when I got a little bit older is when I started like making music. I grew up learning to play the guitar, and then the first band I was in, I played the drums, and it was it was just in my friend's house, and I was like, "Can I learn to play the drums?" And the drums, like, not to be that guy, they just came very naturally to me.
Oh yeah.
I found it very easy to play, and we were a pop punk band. It was not hard
No.
drum patterns. They were very. We were just playing Blink 182 songs,
Three
so
chords. Yeah. Yeah.
it was not that hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just started clinging to stuff, and then as like an older adult now, I got very much into like electronic music and industrial music,
Mhm.
very much into experimental, um, very weird stuff. But yeah, like I just love music in general, and so I've never been that guy that's all like where I of course like I loved having like a battle jacket covered in band patches,
Yes, that's
but I
it.
was never that guy that was like, oh yeah, Britney Spears sucks. I don't understand that. I was always just like, hell yeah, Fergie, let's listen to it. Like,
Sure. Why not?
so I just love music, and I think truly to wrap that back up,
Yeah.
it goes to the fact that my family listened to everything growing up. That
Yeah.
I never felt the need to be like elitist or about gatekeeping or I only listen to underground music. No, I'll listen to whatever.
Right.
But if it is like trying to get me excited and whatnot, metal is always my go-to.
That's your go-to. That's cool.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, mine was always just electronic. Like that's it's like that's where the heart starts and then everything
totally.
else just kind of goes into this sort of like vines and stuff. But it's like if it's electronic and then it kind of goes.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm always chasing the music dragon. I'm going, what's
yeah,
next? What can I
totally,
plug into? That's one of my main reasons with the podcast where it's like who can I plug into and where can I
totally.
keep chasing this sort of dragon or whatever. And
Um,
you
yeah,
know,
I completely agree.
yeah, and it's
And the magic too of like growing up in a scene. I also grew up a hardcore kid, and the
yes,
Salt Lake hardcore scene is very infamously very strong. And
wow,
so I'm very lucky to have grown up in a scene where there was a celebration of local music. I also am straight edge, and the Salt Lake straight edge scene used to be very sketchy,
yeah,
but it's much better now. There's
yeah,
literal documentaries on how bad it used to be, but like
right,
much better now. But yeah, like growing up in a scene where local music was so embraced and encouraging to go to local music.
yeah,
I that's one thing I've also learned about my friends that are other musicians as well is sometimes they don't come from scenes where music is embraced. So they're like, freaking nobody comes to my shows, and I can hardly get anybody to wear a shirt. And I'm like, that sucks because my scene, it's just, the local shows happen all the time,
Oh
and
yeah,
you'll always get kids that want to come.
so
So just the scene you grow up in also, I think, impacts heavily. I'm sorry to interrupt you from before, but
oh
the
no
scene
no
you
no.
impact, it helps you understand like chasing that music dragon
Oh yeah.
um, can be very scene specific as well.
Oh, definitely. And one thing
Yeah.
that stood out, reading your bio, there was one. I mean, there's two, but there's one that in particular really like connected me was "Love Lost but Not Forgotten." They were
Yes.
hometown band, like St. Peters, Missouri. That was
Oh, cool.
I've moved from like St. Charles, and I mean this is very
Yeah.
inside. This is very Missouri talk, but it was like moved from St. Charles to O'Fallon, and then grew up in St. Peters. That's where I was
Okay.
spending my youth.
Yeah.
And so my youth is like, hey, we're exploring music, exploring the scene, and Love Lost but Not Forgotten was, been to basement shows with that band and
Oh, that's
seeing
so
them at
cool.
so many venues, and it was just like, wow, they really do just kind of, you forget that there's these bands that you grew up with and listening to, and
Yeah,
you go, I had no idea they made such an impact on people from here to there.
totally.
It's amazing, and it's just so
Um,
cool that you see them as one of your influences.
the way that people view like Kurt Cobain is how I look at Love Lost but Not Forgotten. Like, I think Love Lost is the coolest band that ever
They're so
lived.
cool.
And like same thing. I'm also very much into screamo and the screamo scene.
Mhm.
And my gosh, Love Lost is like they're like the Beatles to us. And like, like all good, like every legendary screamo band, there's two albums.
Yeah.
So but the fact that you got to see them is genuinely so cool because they were small and only around for a few years.
Oh yeah.
They only played for a little bit there,
Came and went.
and they're the coolest band that ever lived.
So
I could listen to that band all day, every
all,
day, and just be so happy.
all day, every day. And then you
Hmm.
also noted Pearson. Justin Pearson is one of your
Oh,
big influences, and it was great.
he's my hero.
Oh, I love him, and he's again, he was one of those where was able to kind of bring with the Locust where they were kind of the sort of early building blocks of cybergrind because they were able to bring
Absolutely,
grindcore and electronic, and it was so cool to be able to talk with him and just kind of get to know him a little bit more. I mean, I
that's
encourage
so cool, dude.
everybody check out his documentary. I think it's currently on
It's
Tubi.
phenomenal.
So
Yeah.
good. It's so good. And what was great is that I've read his books, and
Yes.
it was good to kind of see that in sort of a visual aspect instead of
Yeah.
because I mean they bring up a lot that was from the book, his story and all that into the
Totally.
documentary. But when I had him on, I was like, I don't want to repeat everything that's already been talked about on the documentary. I don't want to do the usual
Yeah.
tell me
Which
your
I'm sure he
backstory.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got in and I go, well, there's one time they got robbed here in St. Louis, so I wanted to get that
Oh,
story.
dang.
The Satanic Planet performance that
Yes.
was in Indiana, which was just like mind blowing. I'm like, give me all like so
Yeah.
went into this whole 13-minute just behind the scenes of however that I encourage everybody to check that one out.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
so
Pearson,
cool.
he's just one of the raddest dudes, and he will give you. It's great because he'll give you like the time of day and just go, "Hey, let's talk."
Yeah.
Like he's
I
really,
love that.
yeah,
Yeah, he is like Jesus to me. I think Justin Pearson is the coolest person that's ever lived.
he's
And like
very,
he is the reason I wanted to make music. So
yeah,
and like it's hard. There's a lot of people in more like off the beaten path music that have been in a billion bands.
oh,
And there's hardly any of those people where you can say every band they're in is great. And
yeah,
Justin Pearson, every band he's in is
every band.
incredible. Yeah.
He's like the King Midas of like the sort of
100%.
oh my god of he'll just touch everything and it's just
Oh
absolute
yeah.
gold, man. Like he's one of the best, and that's why I've always seen him as the one of my great influences. It's always been just kind of this five
Totally.
five top five list, and Pearson's definitely right in the middle of that one.
Oh yeah. The thing that I also love about Justin Pearson is that a lot of the bands do sound mildly similar, but they're not all the same.
Right.
And he's also not the singer of everyone.
No.
You have other people in music that are in a billion bands and they have to be the singer.
Yeah.
And like we all feel differently about that. But Justin's like, I'll just play whatever. I just want to be in the band. And that just shows what like a stand-up musician he is. And it's about the art for him. It's not the fame. He doesn't like the fame part of it. So
Yeah, and
it's
recently he
crazy.
did teamed up with Martin Atkins, who did Public Image Limited and Pigface
Yes.
Industrial, and he played was it bass on just kind of there's this like,
Yeah.
hey, let's play this album that's 40 years old, and he just kind of popped in and just started playing bass. I was like, that dude
Oh
can
yeah.
just do anything.
It's so crazy. And
So
he's so talented. So let him do it.
talented. So,
Yeah.
um, what bands have you been listening to lately? Like, what's caught your ear? Anything new that stands out?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always checking out new stuff. One band I got into actually 2 days ago. They're called Heaven Content.
Having con-
And I found them on TikTok.
hmm
They are, right now there's the younger generation, Gen Z loves like revival stuff right now.
hmm
They're very into getting into music that was, created in the 2000s. So Heaven Content is like post-hardcore revival. They sounded a lot like The Used.
Wow.
The Used, and there's a mix of like Skylit Drive instrumentals in there. And I was on like, holy crap, you sound like a band I would have listened to in junior high. And then I started DMing them, and they were just super super sweet. Um, there is a Nintendo core band called Eat the Snow that I really like. Eat the Snow. They're a couple of younger guys, and all of their music is based off of the video game Undertale. And so all of their theming is Undertale. All of the lyrics are Undertale references. There's Undertale quotes in the songs and stuff. And it's genuinely super intense, like and really fun. Um, and then one more. What's one more? There is a pop punk band I also found on TikTok called Lake Rana, Rana, maybe Raina.
Mhm.
Um, and they're great. They sounded more like Neck Deep, Heart Attack Man, kind of more punk focused than pop focused. And they were great. They're younger guys too. They're probably in their early 20s, but it was so catchy. It was insane. I was like humming it to myself, the rest of the day.
Wow.
Um,
That's cool.
but yeah, I will listen to anything and everything, and also I love picking up new stuff. And then I always, like you mentioned before, I have, my personal Instagram, I have my band Instagram, I have my vinyl Instagram, and I love just posting about bands I
Yeah,
find,
me too.
because then people can find them, and then I'm very lucky to say that a lot of the bands I found in early days became my close friends, and now they're much larger. And so it's cool to be able to use your platform to be able to say, hey, you guys should check out this band because they sound like the Chariot or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, it's amazing. And even, with bands that it's funny because I was trying to think of other bands that I've been, and I started kind of
yeah,
going
I want
back
to hear.
to the sort of dance punk revival. Like I'm
Okay,
always kind of drawn to that, that I go back to that scene often and kind of feel like I'll dig up different bands, and the most recent
totally.
one was Late of the Pier, which they only did one
Oh, I
album.
don't know them.
They're a little bit like, I'm trying to think. They're oh crap, where are they from? I think they only put out one full length album,
Okay,
and they yeah, Lay the Pier. They're from the UK, and
okay,
they kind of have that sort of I like my sort of dance punk revival to have a little like raw
okay.
little edge to it, kind of like the Faint.
Absolutely.
The Faint has that very just that raw
Mm-hmm.
sound, not so polished and everything like that. But they kind of really got that sound, and then yeah, they just they have a real gr- grit to them, and it's one of those where I'll do this thing where I'll listen to a band, listen to a couple songs, and go, okay, I like that. Let me kind of put them on the back burner. Maybe I'm not ready for it.
Totally.
You know what I mean? I bet you go through that where you go, okay, I
Oh,
like that.
absolutely.
I'll remember them, keep them on the back burner for when I'm really like I think I'm ready. And I go
Yeah,
through that process so much. I did that with Tom Waits. I did that with
totally.
Buckley. It's these bands where I'm going, I like this, but my heart and my mind aren't ready for it yet. But
Totally.
I know once it comes back, it's gonna hit. And so there's certain bands that I'll do that where it's like they'll seem fresh because I'm finally digging into their discography
Yeah,
and going, I love this now. So again, that's one of
totally.
those bands that are like that. And then I got so sucked into the new what's that new band? I'm gonna say it because they're from Quebec, that Engine du Poutine, the Spots, and
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got sucked into that. I
Super
liked it.
crazy.
Super crazy. I mean, I didn't
Yeah,
think that they would blow up, but I mean, everybody's been talking about
they
them.
have blown up. It's
Insanely
wild.
talented, though. I
Yeah,
like it just because it, it's simple but complex. I just like the way it
absolutely.
feels. Like it's like eating a bowl of popcorn. There's something I don't know. Like
I get you though. Like,
yeah, I get.
like especially the visuals of that.
Oh
It
yeah,
was very like this is crazy, and I'm fascinated by it.
me
Yeah,
too. Yeah, and they got that sort of Dada-esque uh,
Uh-huh.
vibe to them, where it's like I don't understand this, but I love it.
But you know what? Go for it. Yeah,
I like being challenged musically
totally.
and performance wise. I'm like, challenge me, give me something new
Absolutely.
that I'm going. I don't know how to process this, but I'm going to at some point. Like I love that.
Totally. Yeah.
So, let's get back to your music.
Okay.
So tell me about kind of the process, the sort of songwriting process that you go through,
Yep.
and when you're going, okay, I think I'm ready to kind of lay down a track.
Yeah.
Where do you go through, and then you're, not just that, but what do you work with on your like laptop? Again, you're a one man band, so it's kind of
Hmm.
you and the back. Is it just you and the backtracks on stage and everything like that?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about
So,
that
yeah,
process.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So, with every song I write, it's always music first.
Hmm.
I always lay down the instrumentals first, and I tend to write the songs around the keyboard arrangements
Okay.
first. So, a lot of times, what I'll do is, um, whether I'm bored or working, or I could be as busy as I could be, or nothing's going on,
Sure.
I will like hear little keyboard progressions in my head. And this may sound very strange, so get ready for it. But I will physically play them in the air with my fingers,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it gets like that muscle memory
Of course.
of
Yeah.
like what it sounds like in my head, and so then when I play it on my keyboard, it actually I can like it's not hard for me to come up with it.
Sure,
So a
yeah.
lot of times the inspiration will hit, and I'll be like, "That'd be such a fun sound," or "That's such a crazy thing," or I'll just sit down and mess around.
Sure.
But it tends to be a lot of keyboards first or drums first because I do love playing the drums. I like will get like a pattern in my head or a drum pattern and be like, that would be fun. For example, on the last album, I have a song called "Dry Humping Active Landmines," um, and that came from just a drum pattern where I was like, dun 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 dun, and I was like, I gotta do something with that. That's so stupid. And then a lot of the and that so I do like I will write the entire song musically, and then is where I write lyrics, and I have a lot of fun writing lyrics.
Mhm.
First grade Fight Club lyrics are difficult to understand if you're just like listening to it without knowing anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll post the lyrics or whatever, but I find it. I've always loved writing. I have a very fun time doing like wordplay and puns and stuff,
Mhm.
and so I love the actual process of writing. And what I do is I learned to this as a teenager. I keep a list in my phone of potential song names,
Yeah.
and because the magic of being like a MySpace kid is that the song names were crazy, and so I found the best song names come from just random conversations or moments or like you said quotes from shows or
Yeah.
names of things, and I will just write it down immediately.
Yeah.
And so it's probably like my most prized possession
Yeah.
is my list of song names because there's just straight up gold on there.
I'm like
Um,
that too. Yeah, I get that.
exactly, yeah. And so a lot of times the lyrics, I have an idea for something I want to write about, and if I'm kind of struggling for it, I'll look through the song names
Hmm.
and be like, "Ooh, what could be like something I could take off of this?"
Yeah.
Several of my songs are just about movies,
Yes.
movies that I like,
Yep.
and they tend to be like more not as well known movies.
Sure.
There's a song I have called "Wires and the Concept of Beating," which is about this movie from the '80s I found on Tubi
Hmm.
called "Beware Children at Play," and
Yes.
it was this.
Mhm.
It was awesome, and I
Oh
loved
yeah.
it was so cheesy, it was so insane. And then I was like, so I have to write a song about this,
That's
or
so.
like I'll see just this insane movie and be like, well, I need to do something with this knowledge.
Yep.
Um, so and then inspiration wise, same thing. If it's not about a movie, I love talking about like killing and murder and all that stuff. Just being a death metal kid, that stuff is very fun for me to
Oh yeah.
make into
Sure.
music. So violence is always something I resort to. I think in fact, one really quick side note, I
Yeah.
was at a friend's house one time, and his wife had said, "So I understand you make music," and I was like, "I do." And she said, "What are your songs about?" And I
Oh
said,
god.
"Murder." And I said, "Murder." And she said, "What else?" And I was like, like I was like, "There's a couple about arson." And she was like, "Why? Why do you write about murder and killing?" I was like, "Because I think it's funny."
It's just
That's
fun.
it. It's
It's
fun
a
and it's funny.
it's a weird like because God, I mean, if I was to dive into some of the songs that again, there's some songs that are like where I will most recently, I did a song for a compilation that came out
Okay.
called is Electronic Savior, where they donate the proceeds to cancer patients.
Oh, cool. That's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
anyways, I was kind of off music for a while because I was busy just family and
Yeah.
podcasts
Life.
like
Yeah.
that. And one of the quotes was "Come, come, Mr. Lee, don't play stupid with me," which was from the movie Naked Lunch.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Cronenberg, William S. Burroughs. So yeah, I'm always pulling things and especially old movies. Like I love old 80s movies, public
Yeah.
domain
Same.
movies.
Yeah.
Love those. I'm always drawn to those. But when you're trying when people go, why would you write about that when again you're happy, pleasant
Yeah.
person, but there's times where if when it comes to murder, or, you know if you have an ex-girlfriend that treated you horribly and you're writing a
Oh, yeah.
terrible
Totally.
song about it, you're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's me unloading the sort of garbage that's in my
Yeah.
head and using it productively. And I think it was a weird uh, 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 sort of I'm trying to find the right words. A weird time when, again, we're going to go to the sort of influences where Glassjaw is one of my favorite bands.
Oh, love Glassjaw. Great band.
Love Glassjaw. One of my prized vinyls is their 30th year anniversary, where it's kind of a box set and they
Oh,
got
the
booklet.
cool box out of the three. Yeah.
Love it. That's my
So
prize.
cool.
The first album is very. I've been through a lot of relationship problems and I'm
Yeah.
trying to kind of unload this, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that we got to a certain point where people were going, is it overly misogynistic? And of course, he's allowed to apologize for what he said.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But at the time, that album did so much for me when I was in a horrible relationship. And it wasn't like,
Totally.
oh, I'm gonna this, that, and the no, it just when you've gone through so much pain and suffering in a relationship that you've been with somebody, again, your brain's going, this I feel unloved, I feel mistreated, da 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 da, and your
Yeah.
brain's kind of swirling. You're going, I got to use this, I got to unload this lyrically and musically.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they'll go, if you're writing songs about murder and destruction and this, that,
Yeah.
the other, then you must be a horrible violent. And you go, no, I think we're all the
Yeah.
complete. And again, with metal and grindcore, most of those are like the nicest people you're ever going to meet,
Totally.
you know?
Absolutely. I think it's because they do get those feelings out,
Yeah.
and they're able to just exercise them and realize like the art is a way to process things, and it can help you process negative feelings, or not even just help you process, get you ready to process
Yeah.
feelings. Because a lot of times people that are in metal bands actually have like quite normal lives. They've maybe not haven't been through the craziest breakups, but then when stuff happens to them that is negative or not happy, then they're ready for it, and it's not a shock, and they know how to get ready for negative emotions. So yeah, it's a beautiful therapy.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
are you, when it comes to your sort of songwriting process, is it kind of a balance of like, I'm kind of just having fun with this and kind of paying homage to, funny movies or,
Yeah.
horror movies, and then you're going, okay, but then there's this other side where I feel like I'm kind of going through a therapy session. Is it kind of like that?
It actually is more on the former of what you said
Okay.
because uh a lot of times what I'll do is I'll think of, same thing, something funny, murder, whatever, and then I try to think of just a non-conventional humorous way to approach it.
Yeah.
So for example, a lot of times my songs are of course about like the act of murder, but I'm trying to think of what's an interesting way to approach that.
Mhm.
So on the first album there's a song called The Merciless Air Fryer Killings of Sedona, Arizona.
Mhm.
And I had this idea of it was funny if there's a guy who's a cannibal but he only uses air fryers, and like so he eats people but he's not into baking, he's not into oil, or he's not into frying food. He loves an air fryer. So I was like, that because I was just like, that'd be so funny
Yeah.
if there's just a cannibal who's really into clean eating. And so I was like, that'd be funny if he like kills people, but he has to use an air fryer.
Sure.
So it's a lot of times the songs, you can basically throw a dart at any of the songs, and it probably is about killing, but I've done it in a way that I just think is funny, like that I think is ridiculous or like absurd or over the top.
Yeah.
So it's not always. I think that comes from too is a mix of loving Cannibal Corpse growing up,
Yes.
because their songs are all about murder and kind of unconventional ways. But I also mix in my TV influences of like A Thousand Ways to Die and a lot of the more ridiculous MTV, Spike TV
Yeah.
things of the 2000s. It
Yeah.
literally gives you a funny way to approach death and
Yeah.
murder. Yeah.
No, and I think that's healthy and it's fun and
Oh yeah.
it's so inspiring and and I like when there's a sort of like a hint of sense of humor in music where it's like, yeah, again, we don't have to take all this shit seriously. And what was it
Exactly.
like for you? Where did you draw that sort of sense of humor? Like, of course, like for me, it was like Brennan Stimpy, Invader Zim, that
Totally.
type of shit. What was your like your sort of visual influence when it comes to humor?
Yeah. No one that knows me personally would find this shocking. It's Happy Tree Friends.
There you go, for sure.
Being obsessed with the Happy Tree Friends growing up was like it made me just think murder and gory things are
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Like Happy Tree Friends. And what a great time capsule too of like the humor of the 2000s
Oh my
that only fit to the people at the time.
God.
Because I have shown people Happy Tree Friends now and they go, "What is this?" And I'm like, "You don't think it's funny?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Come on, they're cute little characters getting horribly murdered. Like it's funny."
So
And seeing the humor change for a lot of people. But yeah, Happy Tree Friends was a very big one for me. And also just it's not necessarily a show or a movie, but I loved the video games growing up, like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Zoo Tycoon,
mhm.
and the magic and like Age of Empires, and the magic of those sort of free world games is you're basically God,
Yeah,
and you can just like play the game, sure, but
yeah,
then most of us came to a point where like this is boring. I'm gonna drown everybody, or I'm gonna do a water slide on Roller Coaster Tycoon that goes so fast everyone flies off and explodes.
yeah,
Or Age of Empires, you just like I'm gonna starve everyone to death and see what happens. And like so, I think like in the 2000s there was this like embrace toward um absurdity
yes,
in terms of Living Dead. Like you said, Ren and Stimpy is such a good example of taking something so mundane and just amping up to 11 of how insane this can get. I also thought the same of the show Cow and Chicken.
mm-hmm.
Cow and Chicken was very random humor.
Oh yeah,
We watched a lot of like Jackass growing up,
oh for sure.
and so like I feel like you put all that stuff into a blender, and it's just this embrace towards absurdity
Yeah.
that's not like over the top that it makes no sense.
Mm.
I think there is a level to absurdity where there is a brilliance to it, and you are working in an artistic form that's funny and can be actually really endearing.
Yeah.
But there's a level you go too far absurd and it doesn't even make sense anymore, and it's just stupid. Yeah. So
God, I love.
there's a science to it.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I've noticed that, you brought up the 2000s and stuff like that where people are finding so much comfort in that nostalgia, especially us who kind of grew up in it. But now it's
Totally.
kind of having this influence on the new generation. Like I got three daughters, and they're very much drawn to, they're like, I wish I could have been at Hot Topic when it was in its golden era,
Right.
which I used
Yeah.
to work. I worked there at the time, and
Oh, nice.
that
Yeah.
was so much fun. And but they kind of yearn for this thing that they've never experienced, but they kind of live vicariously through people's sort of remember this, remember that
Totally.
posts online, and it's funny because I'll try and kind of bring them trinkets of like, here's Invader Zim, here's this
Yeah.
band, here's that, and even my daughter's like, man, I wish you would have held on to your old like trip pants with the baggy pants with the chains and stuff
Strip
on it. I was like,
bands. Yes,
I
dude.
know. I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm so sorry. Like, I wish I would have held on to that stuff, but
Seriously.
kind of grew out of
It's
it.
funny
But
because I've talked to this a lot with several people.
mm,
In once you hit like the mid 2010s, so much of entertainment, fashion, lifestyle stuff became about money and became what's the popular way to do things. And one good way to look at it is you look at like a music award show, there's kind of no bands anymore.
no,
You look at like the Grammys, it's just solo pop singers.
yeah, of
And there's nothing wrong with that. I love pop music too.
course,
But like even hip hop is no longer a mainstream thing for a lot of people. And rock music isn't mainstream anymore. So you look at the 2010s and it's because they realized pop music just makes so much more money
I know.
that this whole idea of it's perfectly mainstream to also stand out
Mm,
kind of went away.
oh
So you
yeah,
have places like Hot Topic that now kids look at and go, that's so cool. that you could go to a store and not have to go on the internet to get band shirts and to get, rubber bracelets and
Yeah.
trip pants and like, the crazy things. And it's like, yeah, because back in the day, it like a good example. I'm very lucky to be close to my nephews and nieces, and I've been an uncle since I was 11, so they're like little siblings. Like they're not really my nephews and nieces; they're also like my siblings.
Sure.
But my nephews always find it funny where they're just like, "Is it crazy to you that like like people at your school knew who Fallout Boy was?" And because to them, Fallout Boy is so niche and such
Yeah,
an emo thing,
they would
and
come
I'm like,
in. They're like the
you
next state
guys,
over for me. Like I've seen them in
exactly.
small venues. Like they are right
Oh,
up over the river for us. Like so, yeah,
exactly. And I'd be like, you guys, Fall Out Boy was like on the radio.
yeah,
Like your mom knew Fall Out Boy. Like it's not like stuff like that was not niche. It was not the popular thing, but
mm-hmm.
it was mainstream.
Oh, it's
And
very
I think
mainstream.
that's what like the kids today now find this like craving toward
Mm-hmm.
is that it's okay to not want to dress like standard and typical and still be happy and still do whatever you want to do. And our generation was so lucky to grow up in a time where it wasn't about money. And
No.
like a good example is going to Hot Topic, and Hot Topic things were cheap but also great.
Yeah.
Like stuff like trip pants was more expensive, but
Oh,
they would do like the 2 for $15 t-shirt sale, and that means that shirts were $7. Like that was the best. Those were great days, and the shirts were great, and they were good quality, and they had great designs. And
mm-hmm.
so it just things have gone different, but I genuinely love the embrace that the younger generation has towards like a nostalgia for a time they did not grow up in. It does. I think it is a double-edged sword because a lot of times they're missing something where you're like, actually, that was not great, or like being an emo kid was not accepted in my school. I got called every slur on the
Oh
planet.
my gosh.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't know that part. They just
I
or
know.
I remember I saw a TikTok recently and it was just like there were two kinds of girls in 2008, and one was like scene queen hair and one was just like a Hollister model, and I was like, you know, there wasn't just two girls.
Right.
There-
Right.
it was way more, and also like maybe one kid at your school had scene hair. Most kids did not. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the thing where it was, most kids that I kind of grew up with, again, I think we kind of got a bit of a gap. I graduated in '04, and
Okay.
so I was kind of in this where we were kind of in the there it was like new metal and
Yeah.
goth and industrial, where it was kind of in that I would call it, I'll call it the Ozfest era,
There
where
you go.
that's where we were. But there was also the skaters, and the punks that were kind of in the sort of Vans Warp Tour. You kind of got
Totally.
those. They all kind of gelled together. But I noticed that when it came to the sort of scene as it was progressing, again, when I worked at Hot Topic,
Yeah.
a lot of kids didn't have the scene hair very often. I think that was kind of more,
It was a very internet thing.
yeah, it was a very internet thing. I think maybe big city would probably be,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
it probably would have been more of like a big city. And, most of these kids are like, well, my mom won't let me do that. So, they just
Exactly.
kind of, but they would always wear the same band shirts and the,
Of course.
bracelets and stuff like that. But again, it's just like, there wasn't always the preps and the freaks. There you got a little bit of
Oh, and
everything.
there was levels to it. Yeah.
There's so many levels to it and very
Yeah.
complex. And you know I had something, but I totally lost it. But anyways, yeah,
That's
so
okay. Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
totally
it's
get it.
yeah. It's a time that like it's great to be nostalgic for the good things of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then even when you were outside of the usual, the preps, or
Yeah.
the usual, when you were in the outside group, y- either you were way outside the group just because you didn't gel
Totally.
with them, or you were kind of in between. Because I was always kind of the class clown, so I
Yeah.
wore the usual like fishnet shirts, band shirts, that type of stuff when I was in, and I gradually went into the sort of weird sort of cyberpunk phase where I was wearing these like
Nice. Yeah.
silver pants and goggles on
Heck
my
yeah.
head. It was weird.
Heck yeah.
But anyways, but you had either you were way out of it, or you kind of balanced and kind of were in between, where you just kind of gelled with everybody. And I think that
Absolutely.
was really me, where I was just kind of fine with everybody as long as I, could talk with you and make you laugh and shoot. that was
Totally.
it, and I think that's important is that there wasn't just this or that. You had a little bit of everybody, and I loved that about it.
Yeah.
So,
And it's so funny you say that because a good example. So I'm only a few years younger than you.
yeah,
I
yeah.
graduated in 2011.
Okay,
So in
there
the
you
late 2000s in my high school, and we're talking about like Utah,
go.
so many kids were into metalcore that
Wow,
we had factions of metalcore kids at our
really?
school. So like I've talked to so many friends across the country where they're like I was the only kid in my whole school that liked metal. And I was like we were in like the almost triple digits of metalheads in my school. And so you had like like the As I Lay Dying kids and the Slipknot kids and the Disturbed kids, and the kids that like Bring Me the Horizon and like they would literally form these little groups and they were not friends with each other. That was always the funny thing. So you had like so many metal kids at my school that like the kids that were like in auto shop, for example, really liked As I Lay Dying and Slipknot and Children of Bodom. And then a lot of my sort of group was like the neon monster merch scene kids. So we were way more into like Bring Me the Horizon and the Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
And then you had the kids that were super into Parkway Drive, the more like bro kind of metalcore.
Mhm.
Like literally so many metal kids at my school that you had to like um know which way to handle things.
Wait a
If someone was like, "Oh, you like metal? Are
yeah,
you friends with this person?"
yeah,
And
but
you're
are
like, "Well, yeah, I am, but also I like this." So it is a difference of everywhere you go because like I have a buddy from New Jersey and he is a very talented guitar player who loves like August Burns Red. Um and he's always just like I did not know a single human growing up to like metal. And
wow.
I was like, "Buddy, we had such opposite experiences." And in my high school there's so many metalcore bands
Yep.
that they would have like they could do shows where it's just kids from the same grade
Wow.
where like there were so many bands, yeah. It was wild.
That's so cool. And growing up in the Mormon church, I'm from the Midwest, in
Yeah.
Missouri. We have the church I grew up in is a sort of non-denominational mega church,
Yeah,
the sort of prosperity church, if you're a prosperity
of
faith,
course.
if you want to go that route. Were you guys drawn to, like a Solid State and Tooth and Nail, that sort of record? Like, was that very much like church? These bands,
Yeah.
like Under Oath and The Chariot and Showbread. Was there like, did you guys have that
Oh
going?
yeah,
Okay,
the Christ core thing was huge for many
thank
of
you.
us
That's what I thought.
because
Okay.
then you're like, you know what, I can be a good little Christian boy and also listen to Oh Sleeper, and like I can be super into a plea for purging and all these solid state bands. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of us were super into
That's
Christ core.
so
I
cool.
still am actually. There's a lot of great Christ core
Yeah.
bands to this
Oh my
day that
God.
are up and kicking, and I went to Furnace Fest in
Yes. Tell me about
2023,
that. I heard
couple
you
couple
on
few years ago.
Pit Therapy podcast. You were talking a little bit about
Yes.
that. Tell me about that.
Oh, it's the freaking Funnest Festival. They change it every year. I
Mhm.
actually don't think they're doing it anymore. There was some
No, I
drama
don't
with
think
the
so.
Furnace
Yeah.
Fest people.
Mhm.
But the year I went was 2023, which was every year they tend to have sort of like a theme around the bands they're getting.
Okay.
Um, and the year I went, it was a lot of Christian metalcore and a lot of straight edge bands.
Yeah.
And so I was like, literally, this is calling my name.
Sign me up.
And so, but what's crazy is you had a lot of bands reuniting just for that show.
Yeah.
So like, Chasing Victory reunited just to play that show. Training for Utopia reunited just to play Furnace Fest, and then they're done. So you had a lot of these crazy, like, oh my gosh, I listened to this band, on my MP3 player in junior high. That a Christian friend of mine was like, get into these bands. And then also they're like legendary straight edge bands, probably the one like Strife and One King Down played that year, and Judge and Gorilla Biscuits and stuff. So
Mhm.
it was this insane festival, but like uh, what's funny is that I think some people, and if anyone's hearing this that knows me, I apologize. I think some people thought maybe I was a little bit bitchy at Furnace Fest because like they know me from the internet, and that's amazing. But I was there to go see these bands I loved, and
No,
I
it
love
is.
so
Yeah.
many of them that like my schedule was packed every day of just music.
Yeah.
So these people would stop me and say, "Oh my gosh, are you Chicken Waffles Forever?" And I'd say, "Yes, I am. It's so nice to meet you." And they go, "Oh, do you want to hang out?" And I'd say, I got 90 seconds for you. Like, I got 90 seconds. Inclination's about to play. So, what do you want to talk about for 90 seconds? Like,
Yeah.
but I was so excited that
I was so
couldn't
jealous
stop.
of those the lineups because a lot of those bands were the ones that were a lot of the sort of building blocks, and that because I grew up in the church, and it was
Yeah,
funny because my parents, I was listening to a lot of secular music,
Yes.
Manson, Nine Inch Nails, they freaked out. So they were like, let's get a bunch of Christian albums from Back to Basics or the Christian
Okay.
Bookstore,
Yeah.
and so some of it was compilations from
Yes.
Solid State Records and Tooth and Nail and stuff like
Tooth and
that. And
nail.
so,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh! And so those again, it was one of those weird things where it was like, they're going here's these other bands, so you'll stay away from that band. But it opened me up to like, oh
Oh my
wow, like
gosh. Yeah.
Deo and Blindside and
Oh, great
uh,
bands.
Beloved, the U.S. version, and
Yes.
oh my god, just those
Beloved's so great.
they changed my life. And with Under Oath,
Yep.
and then Showbread was one.
Showbread's great.
Showbread's so good. And
Yep.
yeah, I could go on forever. God, I could just talk to you.
Training for Utopia was big for
Training for
me too.
Utopia.
Training for Utopia. Becoming the Archetype was also crazy to see because like
Wow.
we're talking like a heavy Christian band that
Yeah.
like there was doing like death metal vocals. Living Sacrifice played that year, so it was like all these bands that were like you're like I thought all these bands are dads that grew up and like don't play music anymore. So it was a crazy year.
And what was great is that I experienced Cornerstone in the
Yeah,
early 2000s. So I was at the Devil Wears Prada where they're just playing on the dirt road,
so cool.
and seeing a lot of these
Yeah,
bands that they're blossoming.
yeah,
And then the following year everybody's talking about these bands and I'm going, how do you
yeah,
know about Under Oath? How do you know about, I thought I was, but it was the golden era of the Christian core where it was just like
absolutely.
somehow, some way, they pushed themselves up into the mainstream, and all of a sudden everybody's talking. I'm just going, I thought it was just this small community of these Christian
Oh
kids
yeah,
that grew up in the youth group and all that. But no, man, it's just like, wow, I
totally.
never thought. I was very, very envious, very jealous of everybody that was able to experience Furnace Fest, because it was like they're experiencing what I was able to experience in that very short time during
Exactly.
Cornerstone. I'm like, good, let them
Yep.
live that moment. That man, so jealous. Good for you,
That's so
man.
good.
Good for
Thanks,
you.
dude. It was a fun year, and the
Yeah.
the lineup since then have not been my thing. So I was glad I went that year. Yeah,
I know, and I mean, I'm all for all these festivals and
me
everything like
too.
that, but man, I just miss when there was like the touring festival with Vans Warp Tour. I missed that,
Yeah,
but I guess there's no
it's
financially, it just
it's
doesn't work anymore.
exactly just money wise. It's
Yeah.
became such a nightmare for everybody.
It's terrible. It
Yeah.
was terrible, and so much went on. Like it's sad to see
Oh
like
yeah, and the world's changed.
we're just changed so much, and it's
Yeah.
just like and you try and talk about how things were back then versus now, and it's like I don't
Oh,
know,
it's polar opposite.
it
Yeah.
really is, and you're going, you hate to use, well, it was a different time, but it was, and I don't know, like you talk about certain things, and I don't know, it's a
Yeah.
touchy subject depending on what band you're talking about and
Of
everything.
course. Yeah.
It's just,
In fact, just this last week, my girlfriend and I watched that documentary about Warped Tour, the No Room for Rock Stars, that came out
mhm.
like 2010.
Yep.
And she never went to Warped Tour growing up. She does like see music, but like she um was a little more reserved, so she never went to Warped Tour. So
Sure.
she was asking me like, why did Warped Tour end? She said it seemed like so much fun, and she was like, was it like financial thing? And I was like, actually, so many people threatened to sue him because the kid's getting hurt that he was like, this is stupid, I'm not doing it.
Mhm.
And I was like, one big difference that happened from Gen X to Gen Z and everything in between is it went from my kid moshed a Warped Tour and they got hurt, they're stupid, to my kid moshed a Warped Tour and they got hurt, the event is stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like, and we changed the blame,
Yep.
and now stuff like festivals, um, it's become so commercial
Mhm.
and it's become so different. The audience is very different than it used to be. That now festivals, they just have their own kind of people that go.
I
And it
know.
tends to be the people that aren't going to club shows. It
Yep.
tends to be the people that just want to see two bands and want to hang out, which is totally fine. Everyone can spend their money how they want.
Sure.
That's great.
Yep.
I personally don't see the point of it, of just like, and you also have bands that are festival bands now.
Yep.
A band
Oh,
gets like to a certain level of fame, and now all you see is they play festivals and maybe a tour once a year.
yep.
But like Bring Me the Horizon's a great example of a band that just will play every fest, and
Every
then they'll play like a tour.
Oh, I know. And I hope that at some point that they just I'm sorry, play the old stuff. Play the
I
old stuff.
know.
I love the new stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, it's catchy, it's fun to just kind of throw
It's
on,
different
but
though. Yeah.
that first two albums. I mean, I'll even include,
Oh, I
but
love that band, so I'm with you.
oh,
They did that. Did you see they did that festival in Malta a
yes,
couple years ago?
yep,
And they did 2 nights where one was new and one was old, and it was like I've never had such bad FOMO in my entire life.
oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. And we
crazy.
do have a pretty solid. Like I've noticed that a lot of people are really out to support the scene again, and I think it
Totally,
has a lot to do with because there's always these shifts. You got your one side where it's the festival goers, but now I think some people are really wanting to support the underground and do what they can to
absolutely.
keep music thriving in the scene. And even here in Missouri, there was this sort of like with love lost but not forgotten, where it was. I
Yeah,
mean, you had a lot of these, and then it was kind of peaked up in the sort of late '90s, 2000s.
yeah,
The local scene was like thriving, and then 2010s just boom, and
yeah.
then now it's picking back
Oh
up,
yeah,
and it's a good thing, man. I'm very
it
happy,
really is.
very excited, to see what's coming, and I'm excited for you to be like get your hands into the local scene and
Oh,
play a
thank you.
festival, and hopefully if it's like, hey man, I can go to this state or that state and provide. Have you
Yeah.
performed outside states at all?
My first one will be later this year. I'm going to play a festival in Arizona.
Wow, what kind of festival is it?
It's a noise and grind fest.
Okay, perfect,
Yeah,
perfect.
so yeah,
That's gonna be
all the
sick.
noise and grind bands. Yeah,
Tell me about the first. I love hearing these stories about the first show. Tell me about your first grade Fight Club show. Preparing, getting
yeah,
the jitters. Now, do you have this sort of like this ritual where it's like, okay, I gotta prep myself up? Do you have this sort of like, I gotta wear my favorite shirt? Like, tell me about
totally.
your things about how it first started and kind of like now, what is it like now? Tell me,
Yeah,
dig
I
deep.
got you. And I'm lucky that my first show was actually a very good story.
Yeah.
Um, so my first show was opening for Blind Equation,
Wow.
um, which is crazy that my first show was opening for the band that inspired me to make First Grade Fight Club.
That's so cool.
So what happened is that they became my online friends, and then the singer James, he had heard First Grade Fight Club, so they came on tour here. Like they were on tour with Keonashi, and Omerta, I believe. And when those bands were on tour, they were coming to Salt Lake City. When they got here, the show got canceled day of. And Blind Equation, same thing. Like I offered them to stay at my house, so they're like, "Sure, we'll take it." And then the show got canceled, so we just had like hours to kill together. So they're like, "We got nothing to do. Can we just hang out at your house?" I was like, "Sure, of course."
Sweet.
So we became very good friends that day. And then they were going on tour later that year or whenever, a few months after, with a band called Rakuyo. Do you know Rakuyo? Yeah, they're a deathcore band. They're the members of Rakuyo are in a very successful dubstep group called Bajalvin.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're the ones playing like to these arenas with all these dubstep people, and they play with sudden death a lot. But Rakuyo's their like deathcore side project, and all the music is about Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Um, so they had posted their tour poster and coming to Salt Lake City. So I just did the classic, commented, if you guys need someone, if you need a local opener in Salt Lake City, please let me. And then they never said anything, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then like a week before, they messaged through and just like, "Oh my gosh, we actually didn't see this. Would you still be willing?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." So I only had like a week to prepare for my first show, and I was really excited. I had a bunch of friends that came, which was super sweet, and it was a smaller venue, which is great. Um, but I had got some merch ready, and I was so excited. I have actually never like performed for people, as crazy as that is. I'm very extroverted. I don't mind public speaking, but like music wise, I've never performed for people. So I was like next level nervous. And I I have anxiety disorders, but the things that scare me are not what scare most people.
Sure.
And so I don't struggle being brave in nervous situations, but this was like, I think I'm gonna throw up. And so I was the first to play. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And the guy that ran the venue, he was just like, "Yeah, man, you go out at this time." And I was like, "I'm just by myself." And that's the double-edged sword of being a solo musician, is that you do get all control, which is
Oh yeah.
beautiful. That
Mm-hmm.
was my downside of growing up in bands, is that you get in fights, you get disagreements on what things should be like. But when it's just you get all control. However, when you play live, it's just you. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no one to hype you up on
All
stage.
eyes on you.
You have to be brave. Yeah. So I'm with the other bands playing this show, and I'm like pacing back and forth because I'm just like, man, I hope this song goes well. I hope I hit this mark, all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to Calvin from Rakuya, you guys have played to 20,000 people before.
Mhm.
How are you like, how do you fight these nerves?
Yeah.
And he gave me two pieces of advice that were so golden that it helped everything. One is he said, when you are standing on stage, it is so easy to stand inside of a box, like an invisible box, because you're nervous. And he said, I like it, grab the microphone and just start walking back and forth. And he was like, it will physically shake the nerves off. And
Mhm.
I was like, that's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And the other thing he said was, you got to understand when you play kind of weird music, just because people are standing still does not mean they're not having a great time. So he's like, you're the first act. If nobody's moshing, if no one's dancing, please understand everyone still loves it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is golden as well. So I was like, okay, that's like genuinely helping me. And then I played my first set, and it was funny because the magic of what we talked about this earlier, actually, when I play live, it is just myself and a laptop, and
Mhm.
the laptop is playing all the backing track, and then I'm doing the vocals. There's occasional backup vocals that are, programmed with the backing track, but that's not every song, only a couple songs. Um and I remember like the first song. Luckily, I have really long intros, so I have that. I have a whole minute to walk back and forth while
Right.
people are hearing samples and sounds and stuff like that. And then I remember just when I started into the first song, it was such an adrenaline rush of like, this is fun.
Yes.
um the thing about my music too is, like I said, people don't tend to like mosh or headbang because the tempos are crazy. It's really hard to know how to headbang when it's just blast beats for
Yeah.
30 seconds straight. Um but one thing that I find just as like fulfilling is, the applause is wonderful from people, and that makes you feel so good. I love when everyone laughs
Yes.
about the song name or the samples I use. That feeling is just as good as anything else. For example, I have a song. I always, whenever I play live, I do give the intro that I think it's the best song I've ever written. It's off the second album, and it's called "It's Fun to Watch the Light Leave Your Eyes."
Mhm.
And there's a sample in it where I say something that's very screamy, crazy, 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 and then it stops, and there's a sample that says, um, "It's not autism. It's a Little Caesars thin crust pepperoni for $7.99." And that will always make everyone laugh so hard.
Ah,
And like that joke will always make me like
yeah.
smile really big that everyone laughed, and then I could just go back into screaming.
That's
So it like, that feeling alone after the first show was like, that was great. Of course, I made several missteps
Mhm.
because it was my first show. There was a couple songs I did not realize would be so hard to play live,
Oh, yeah.
that I was like, after one song especially, I was so out of breath that I was like, that about killed me. Like, I
Right.
almost died playing that song and no one knows. But yeah, the first show, the jitters were insane, but the payoff was incredible.
That's
Um, and then same thing, that feeling of not only getting to thank them for letting me play for them live, getting to thank Blind Equation right there 2 feet in front of me and saying, like, you guys are the reason I did this.
yeah.
So let me say thank you by showing you the stuff I made inspired by you, um, which is great. And they're my homies, so they just came out at my house after and slept here again.
That's so
um,
cool, man.
and it was fun because James from Blind Equation is the sweetest human alive. He's very humble. Literally, this man like revived dead genre, and
Mhm.
he acts like it's nothing. And so there are so many people now making music because of him,
Yeah.
and he's so humble about it. And so whenever he gives me a compliment, I get so like like like, thanks, James. And
Girly.
like fangirly, like we got back to my house, and I was like, James, thank you so much for letting me play. That was just so nice of you. And he said, like, I remember word for word because it just was so nice of him. And he said, I just want you to know, you sound just like the band Kids on Crack. And I was like, James, like, stop it. Like, I'm like passing out, like,
Stop it.
James, stop. But because I love that band. And he was like, you sounded just like Kids on Crack meets We Came with Broken Teeth. And I was like, stop it now. Like, I'm allowing
You're
you to
turning.
sing my
You're
house. You
blushing.
don't need
I'm
to say that.
blushing.
Yeah. No, you
Stop.
don't need to say that. Yeah. So
Man, that's so
nicest
great.
guy. And but same thing, the first show, um, it is I don't think anyone's first show should be their best one. It
Yeah.
should always be the one I probably learned the most from,
Sure.
because you do try songs where you're like, let's try this one, and either you hate it because
Mhm.
you're like, this isn't going well, or like you realize people don't like it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's so cool. That's so great.
It was
Yeah,
a fun one though.
yeah. And my first show, I wasn't using a laptop. I was using
Yeah.
a full fledged desktop, and it was so funny. And I was able to. I was fortunate enough to play at the Creepy Crawl, which is a legendary venue
Oh,
out
cool.
here in St. Louis
Yeah,
before they shut down. But that was just so much fun, and even just like being like, I like when you go to a venue, especially one that's very like well known, and you go and you kind of chill out in the back or the green room, and you're going, I'm
totally,
kind of soaking in everybody's, you know, whoever else was kind of chilling back here pre-show.
totally.
You see people writing on the walls or putting a sticker up here or this, that, and the other. Like,
Oh yeah,
example, story of the year, local band here in St. Louis
which is crazy to say.
did Creepy
Yeah.
Crawl. That was their first music videos they performed at the Creepy Crawl, and
Oh, cool. Yeah.
it's one of those great things where it's just like, I don't know, you just kind of soak in. I think that's so cool that, a band that you were like, you're the reason I started doing this. And now it's
Hmm.
like, I love hearing those stories, man. That's just
Oh
so
yeah,
heartwarming, dude.
it was the coolest feeling, and
That's,
they're the nicest guys in that band.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. And what, is there an artist that you saw live that you're going, I want to experience that? Is there any artist off the top shelf? Who's the artist that you're like, this is why I want to do this, and what eventually became why you eventually got up on stage? Anyone that comes
That
to
is a
mind?
great question. My answer actually like it was knee jerk reaction. I had been doing first grade Fight Club, but I was nervous about playing live because I started doing it and I loved it and I wanted to play live, but I was having jaw issues. Fun fact, I having issues with an incredibly sore jaw all the time, and I kind of couldn't figure out why. I was even asking other singers
Mhm.
of like, do you know why this is happening? Um, and so I was really nervous about because I couldn't. I remember even like trying to record a 5 minute song and was like, oh, I'm like gonna have lockjaw. This hurts so bad. So I was like, how do I? I was in the process of like I don't know what to do. And there is a black metal band I went and saw called Spectral Wound.
Mhm.
Great band. And I went to their show. They're opening for another black metal band called Holder. And I saw Spectral Wound, and the singer was such just like a rock star. With I am a big fan of black metal, but a lot of black metal shows it's very vibe heavy. It's very atmospheric and like there's a lot of fog and so there's candles or whatever. Like they're very into spookiness.
Sure.
But this guy wore a leather jacket with spikes all over and band patches for other black metal bands.
Mhm.
And he just commanded the stage like you will watch when I'm singing kind of thing. And I remember it being in awe of just the fact that he didn't need to talk. He didn't need to like say, hey, we're Spectral Wound. They just started playing, and the way he would dance, he would like scream so loud that he'd start coughing or whatever. I was so like, this man wants us to know he can perform, not just he can play, he
Right.
can like perform. And
Wow.
so after seeing Spectre Wound, I was like, I gotta find out how to play live. Like, so I started like actually going to the dentist and being like, why does my jaw hurt? All this stuff. And I fixed it and it was great. But it was Spectre Wound that inspired me to be like, I don't want to just stand up there, play my songs, because I've seen several of my like my cohorts, I guess, in
Sure.
the world of cybergrind,
Yeah.
where we all kind of approach performing differently.
Mhm.
Um, some of them are really into rolling on the ground and screaming. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
like that,
Hmm.
and some of them are just sort of into like the doing this.
Sure.
But I was like, so my first show I was like, what would the guy from Spectral Wound do?
Hmm.
Because he just and the magic is you just all eyes are on him. And
Wow.
so that was my thing is I was like, I would love to find a way, which I did find my own way of just I want to command the room without begging people to watch me.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's
great
great.
band, Spectral Wound.
That's great. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because I like that where you can just kind of step on stage, just don't say anything, but you just everybody's going, there's something about this guy that he's gonna bring the whole show, the whole
Yep.
performance, and I love that. I just
Yeah. So one thing I utilize in my shows from that
yeah.
is my intro. What it talking wise is literally just, "Hi, my name is Chris, and this is First Grade Fight Club," and then I start
You just
the intro track. So I don't do this whole like, "All right, everyone, come on up, let's have some fun," or "Everyone, let's." I don't do that. I just am like, "You'll figure it out as we go," and then I'll talk more after that.
yeah.
But yeah, just the way to intro because they didn't do anything, and he just had such this rock star attitude,
Mhm.
and the way he would like flip his hair, and I was like, ah, he's so cool.
That's so rad. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
great band.
Um, Let me see if I got any other questions I need to
Yeah, you're great.
cover so much. So tell me about the music scene out in Salt Lake City and
Hmm.
tell me the good things and is there anything that really turns you off about the music scene? Kind
Yeah,
of give
great
me a little bit
question.
of both.
The music scene in Salt Lake City is very bizarre, because the bands that got big out of here dislike Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Um, but that's because like we don't like them back. So like the biggest bands that come out of Salt Lake are The Used and Chelsea Grin.
Hmm.
Those are probably the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Like Neon Trees is from here.
Yeah.
But and a lot of bands people think are from Utah are not. A lot of people think Imagine Dragons is from here. They're not.
Yeah.
A lot of people think the Killers are from here. They're not.
Yeah.
Because they're Mormon. So it's like if someone's a Mormon, they have to be from Utah, right? Anyway, um, with the heavy music scene,
Mhm.
and the hardcore scene is very strong. There's a lot of hardcore kids. There's a lot of hardcore bands here, and some that are actually making big moves. There's a band called Forever War that starts here, and they're getting a lot of stuff out of their great straight edge band. There's a band called Mask that's
Hmm.
from Salt Lake. They're very good, just more like metallic hardcore. Um, but the thing about Salt Lake hardcore is that I grew up in it, absolutely, but it had a very bad reputation growing up because Salt Lake hardcore in the mid 2000s was so deep into militant straight edge
Mhm.
that there were always stories, and I even saw stuff happening of someone having a cigarette and getting the crap beat out of them.
Mhm.
And it was like they weren't even at the venue, they weren't even like trying to pick a fight.
Yep.
That stuff got so crazy. Luckily, it's completely calmed down now, and Salt Lake straight edge is just more like regular straight edge people. But with grindcore, actually, the grind scene here is fantastic. There are several fantastic grind artists, and by several I mean like a lot. There's a good number of grind bands here. Um, we actually have a lot of very political grind bands here. I myself don't make political music. I am myself, but like musically I'm not. So a lot of times I was like, I want to be friends with you guys, but like I just think about killing people.
Right.
Um, and then electronic music, we're very lucky to have a lot of people here, and it actually tends to be a lot of younger kids
Yeah.
that are really into hyper pop and dungeon synth and industrial stuff. And those people are willing to play any show. So
Wow.
like this next show I mentioned, I'm playing on April 25th. We're playing at the mall, which is already awesome. And a dungeon synth guy and I are opening for a DJ. So it's like it's gonna be a weird show of just like electronic music all
Fun.
around, but
It's fun.
one screamy, one just dreamy.
Yeah.
So the music scene here, the thing I do like about it is that there's a lot going on. There's people trying constantly. There's people that are trying a new thing. All that stuff is great. What I wish we would do better at is we have an issue with clout chasing.
Okay.
You have several people that want to be music experts and they're not in bands. And so they love doing the whole like, oh, the guys from Mask and I are friends. Or I knew about them before, they had their first song or whatever. You have a lot of like people wanting to use like Instagram and TikTok to be like music experts, but they themselves aren't even like going to shows and they're not like
Yeah.
trying to do much. It's a lot of like, okay, like you get just a few annoying kids, and I'm gonna say kids because it's always like
It's always yeah.
someone who's 19.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only thing I really dislike is I have people every now and then they're like, oh my gosh, and Cindy, when people come to me and say, "Are you first grade Fight Club?" It is a very lovely thing. It's very nice of them. But I've had a couple of people like, "Yeah, man, I like was at the first show," and I'll be like, "No, you weren't. I remember. I remember who was there. Like
Yeah.
I remember
I
you
remember
were not
everything.
there." But I'll just be like, "Oh, that's awesome." So, but yeah, like we do have a few of those. But I think that's not a Utah problem. I think that's pretty common in
It's
America
pretty
right
much
now. Is
everywhere. Yeah.
kids wanting to be like instant influencers of music, and that's fine. But not my thing.
It's gonna be like a weird thing to notice because of your sort of like your study in content creation and social
Yeah,
media marketing where people are trying to use cloud as a way to I don't know, make money or benefit from
totally.
what have you kind of learned in your professions and stuff about the world of the social media and not just
Yeah.
that but like bands who are using it to get exposure like what have you noticed because again
Yeah.
it's pretty far from me. I'm just the kind of crazy music geeky guy, but you're kind of like a little bit of both, where you got the music,
Yeah.
but you're also going, I kind of understand this whole social media thing and how
Yeah.
to use it as a tool. Tell me about it. Uh-oh, did we freeze up again?
But I hear you now, so I think we should be good.
Okay, good.
Are you there?
I'm
Yeah.
here.
Okay, we're good. We're
Yep.
good. Okay. What I've noticed
Hmm.
is with social media, especially since Instagram, because
Hmm.
I've been an active social media user since MySpace,
Yeah, me too.
and then I've worked in social media for about 8 years now, nine
Okay.
years. And the thing I've noticed consistently is authenticity makes it not only better for you on the internet, it makes it better for you as the creator.
Okay, good.
A lot of people will see a food reviewer or a music reviewer or a concert person, whatever, and just say, I want the validation that they get.
Sure.
And that's amazing. But
Hmm.
if you yourself do not enjoy making and editing the video, it will become a nightmare to you.
Sure.
I have several friends. I'm lucky that I got my TikTok following from showing vinyl off in like 2020,
Yeah.
when TikTok especially was booming.
Mhm.
And I have several music friends from the internet that we were all sort of starting together at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's funny how many of them, without mentioning names, of course, would start to realize, oh my gosh, the more I show off the records I genuinely like, no one cares. But
Mm.
if I show off a Taylor Swift record, the numbers are going to be there.
Yeah.
Or you'd have people that brands would reach out to them and be like, hey, we want you to sell this turntable or, the Vans shoes or whatever. And their crappy little videos for them are just so like, I'm very obviously being paid to do this and I don't actually like this thing.
Right.
And that's the issue is I have friends that are large influencers that have in the hundreds of thousands of followers, and they literally have to separate who they are on their videos and who they are in real life.
Yeah.
Because if the inauthenticity, and I think this is like a psychology thing, if you are feeling inauthentic too much in your personal life, it bleeds over into everyday life where
Mm.
you start to question who you are, what do you actually enjoy, what do you want to do with your life, because you are living so much in this moment of like, this isn't really who I am, but I want the validation and clicking post. So even for bands, I've talked to several people in bands, actually like larger bands. We're talking like emo legends
Mhm.
who their social media presence is ran by somebody else, which is fine,
I've known that.
but they're like regularly making videos they don't actually care about or that they're just like following a script.
Yeah.
And you can tell that there is an annoyance more than anything
Sure.
when they go, oh, we have to make a video and I have to say the stupid line. And because I sit there and go, I've worked in social media for incredibly large corporations. Um, and if you don't feel a passion about making it, it's obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
So that's my tidbit. There's a little Chris piece of advice for anyone working in content creation or any bands is if you need to find the thing you like doing about it. And for some people, that is filming, for some it's editing, for some it's just coming with the idea. But when you find the thing you like about it, you are willing to put up with the parts that are hard about it. Because then you go, you know what, as long as I get to have the fun of making the video, then I don't need to worry about the numbers or about the validation because the numbers and validation will come naturally.
Yeah. And I think so
Always
too.
will.
And that's one thing I think where I was kind of trying to find my place in this crazy world of the internet, and not
Yeah.
just that, but podcasts and shit like that. And I go, I know I can't compete with celebrities or people who have this
Oh, of course.
variety, but it's like, but deep down I go, as long as I'm staying true to myself and
Yeah.
staying true to the artist that I have on, and go, this is about networking and about communication and working together, and how can we build the scene, what can we do to
Totally.
not just bring sharing on social media, but again, let's bring back sort of word of mouth where it's going, yeah, like there needs to be this sort of combination of everything where you know where we're all working together. And again, I'm kind of
Oh yeah.
I was stuck with the whole MySpace, and even before that we had STL Punk, which was like
Nice. That is
Friendster.
so old. Yeah.
So old. And yeah, and so I understand social media, but again, it's
Yeah.
shifted and changed so much where
It's
it's like,
changed so much.
I'm 40 and I'm going, okay, where can I find my place in this crazy world? And it's
Yeah.
like, again, I'll look at those and I go, this just does not seem authentic. This feels so
Oh
fake,
yeah,
and I can't manage with certain bands that I'm just going. I feel sorry for you because you got to do the song and dance in front of everybody on
yep.
your
And you
TikTok,
can
and
tell they hate it.
they hate it, and it just
Yeah.
breaks my heart. I'm like, unfortunately, you got to go down this route, and but yeah, man, that's some wild, crazy shit. But I'm just happy that you're doing what you love to do, and you're just
Oh, thanks, dude.
keep going, man. It's so amazing. Love your music, and
Thank you.
um, two more questions, and then I'll let you go.
Absolutely.
I noticed your Twin Peaks hat, and your David Lynch. He comes up so much on my podcast. I gotta keep it going.
I love that.
Tell me about uh, David Lynch. Tell me about him in your life. What
Yeah,
inspired you? What do you love most about his work? Just
man.
kind of geek out about David Lynch in front of me because I love to keep him go. Everybody has a David Lynch story. Tell me
That
yours.
is so funny. I
Yeah,
love that how many people on your podcast love David Lynch. That is so
everybody
funny.
loves it, dude. And I think
To
it
be
started
fair,
when
all of us weirdos love David Lynch, so
it
it
started
makes
when he
total sense.
died, and then from
Mhm.
there it was, well, I mean, there's a few that were like, oh, they'll bring up David Lynch, but it was like it really just kind of unfortunately skyrocketed after he passed away, and so it's
Yeah,
like I noticed you like David
absolutely.
Lynch. Tell me everything that because we got
Yeah,
to keep his name.
of course.
Yeah.
So David Lynch is my favorite director. He is I just adore everything he made. Twin Peaks is my favorite show. That's actually how I got into David Lynch. Is I pandemic activity was I needed a new show. I'd heard Twin Peaks, and I remember trying watching the first one years ago, but I was pretty young. So fun fact, my very first job ever was I worked in a video store, and it was the best job ever. It's still to this day the best show I ever had was video store because video stores were so fun.
So fun.
Um, and I had tried Twin Peaks then, so I was like 15, and that was a long time ago, and I did not get it. I thought it was very strange.
Oh yeah.
And so then pandemic, I tried again, and I was like, all right, this is so intriguing. So I started watching it, and I just like, have you ever seen the movie Ratatouille? There's that part in Ratatouille where he like tries two foods for the first time, and like all of a sudden everything comes together in his head. That's what it was like when I saw Twin Peaks, where I was like, so this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And what I love about David Lynch, specifically in terms of Twin Peaks and also his movies, is that in a lot of movies, it's a punchline that somebody is weird or off the beaten path. And in David Lynch, it's a celebration that they're weird and they're not like everybody else.
Yeah.
And one great example to me that I actually like, I would get emotional because I just was so inspired by it. In Twin Peaks, there's a character named Nadine,
Mhm.
and she has an eye patch, and she's obsessed with making silent drape runners using cotton swabs and oil.
Yeah.
And she has a suicide attempt that gives her superhuman strength. And I remember thinking, like, what I love though is watching Sean's like, she's not a joke.
Yeah.
She's a celebration.
So,
It's a love that she's weird. It's a love that she's different. And so after I got watched all of Twin Peaks, um, and I truly found this like love for the way that he paints people, that it's not just because there's so many shows I watched where if someone was a freak, it was a joke.
mhm.
And then in David Lynch, there is no jokes. There are funny moments, of course. He has a great sense of humor, but like I fell in love with this idea from him that weirdness and being sort of quirky is a strength and a talent.
Oh yeah.
It is not a weakness. So then, I started watching all of his movies, and that comes up regularly. Of course, there's movies with very serious messages. But what I love about David Lynch, of course, is that. But I also, the second thing that I just was such admiration of is the way he approaches real topics that other people are not willing to touch. One that comes up a lot is sexual assault.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times in David Lynch projects, sexual assault does happen. It's a very real thing. But I noticed in movies and shows growing up, sexual assault, it's very much done by people that don't know much about victims or victimhood. And it's very cartoonish. It can be a little bit like, not necessarily the act itself is unrealistic, but just how the person reacts is unrealistic. And then in David Lynch productions and films and shows, it's very much like this is a real psychological thing. In Wild at Heart, uh, um, her Laura Dern's character was sexually assaulted as a child, and they do a great job showcasing long-lasting effects of that into your adulthood. And I just was so impressed that he's able to take very difficult things and make them so easy to understand, but just also so weird.
Oh,
David Lynch stuff is so bizarre, and like
bizarre.
a lot of times it makes no sense, and you have to
It
just
shouldn't.
sit there and go either I love this
Mhm.
or what is this. And it's also like I've found it's a good test of like if someone will like the same media as you is if you're like, have you ever seen Eraserhead? And they're like, or if they've never heard of it or never seen it, okay, that's fine. But if they go, yeah, it was terrible, and you're like, oh, okay, like you're probably not my type. Yeah,
Because that's what the best way you said is that it doesn't make sense. But the thing is, if it doesn't make sense up here, it makes sense
yeah.
here. And
Oh,
that's what
100%.
is that if I can't explain it, but I feel something from it, then that's what's important is that and
Oh,
again it comes
absolutely.
with different music and different things like even with like
Yes.
noise music sometimes I can't explain why I like it, but
Oh
if
yeah,
it touches here, that's exactly why I listen to it because
100%.
even if my it's again I'll bring up sort of like weird synthesizer music and stuff like that, and again it's just like it's sometimes audibly people are like this is just noise, but I'm just like
Yeah,
yeah, but somehow it makes sense to me, and I love
absolutely.
it. And again, with David Lynch, it's a lot. I mean, he just God, I
And
can't.
it's very cyclical that like David Lynch's stuff inspires weird music,
Yeah,
and weird music inspired David Lynch. You know,
oh yeah,
he was very much into off the beaten path stuff.
stuff, dude. And
You look at like the Lost Highway soundtrack and it's just
just
Nine
about
Inch
to bring
Nails
that
and
up.
Rammstein, and yeah,
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 and it really catapulted Rammstein, where he just
huge,
listened to just like music, and he's like, I like that. I'm putting that on my soundtrack, and it was just
totally.
so like endearing. And with with David Lynch, I started off with his um early the his Criterion collection of all of his shorts.
Oh, then the shorts are great.
Oh my God. They just totally blew my world apart. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
this is so insanely creative and out there, and I can't
Oh yeah,
explain it, but I love it. I love the weirdness. I love the feelings that it brings on,
totally.
and he's just been one of those that just continuously, and what's great is that not only did he capture the weirdos like us, but he
Yeah.
also people who are not who are normies and stuff like that, they love his stuff. So
Oh
he
yeah.
really was able to just kind of bring everyone into that inner circle of just his world, and it's
Oh, absolutely. And you
what
even look at like the movie A Straight Story. He made a
yeah,
Disney movie,
I
and
know.
people never talk about
I mean,
that.
there's
Like
one movie.
he of course did Blue Velvet and Lost Highway. He did these shocking, horrifying movies and Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. But he
Oh
also made a Disney movie.
yeah, made business, and
Yeah,
it
and
was
it's
so
great. Straight
it's
Story is
so
fantastic.
it's
Uh,
very David Lynchy, and you watch and I go, yep, that's him.
oh yeah, the
You
way things
see,
are filmed.
yeah,
Yeah,
you see his
yeah,
fingerprints on certain
his
things, and you go,
style.
that's his style. And he was
Absolutely.
funny. This doesn't really come up very much, but he was on an episode of Louis, Louis C.K. the comedian.
Oh, okay.
He played so in the show, Louis was accepted as to be the new host of late night because I guess around
Okay.
the time there was talks about Letterman stepping down or Leno, and so they were
Okay.
wanting,
Yeah.
so he kind of worked that into his show.
Yeah.
And David Lynch played a guy who's training him to be the new host of late night, and it's
Yeah.
so out there and it's so weird and
That's
so
so
David
funny.
Lynch. And
Yeah.
again, Louis C.K. is one of those comedians and artists that I looked up to, but unfortunately he's got that sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
past
I
that
get that though.
it's the black fog that kind of hangs over. But he really
Totally.
was like always inspired by Lynch, even with his comedy and with his shorts and his
Oh
shows and
yeah.
stuff. So he really brought David Lynch into that sort of bubble, and it was just them working together was just like it was such art, and it was so weird.
Absolutely.
I love Lynch. He's so great.
Yeah.
He'll
He's the
always come
best.
up. Yeah. Last question. I'll let you go.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris, so much for your time. I
Of
really
course, dude. This is
appreciate it.
great.
Amazing to talk to. Um, where do you see First Grade Fight Club in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you hope to see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I, of course, want to do it as long as I can.
Sure.
I'm lucky that I learned how to scream when I was very young. So I'm not like there's several people that try screaming in music as adults, and don't know how to do it right, and it can ruin their voice.
Mhm.
I'm lucky that that's not a thing for me.
That's good.
Um, so in the future, I want to see First Grade Fight Club. Of course, I continue on in writing and doing more shows and stuff like that. I I don't know if I would ever be like a touring musician,
Sure.
just because I already have
Financial
a job and
reasons.
I have a career. Yeah, I have a job I need to be here for. But I would love, of course, to show First Grade Fight Club to more audiences outside of Utah, and also just like I would love to be able to um, work. This is gonna sound crazy, but like work more thematically.
Okay.
So a lot of my albums don't really have themes besides murder, and but I think all the time like it'd be so cool to do this idea, this concept, and have the dedicated time and effort to be able to chase that without feeling like, oh crap, that's gonna take forever, or I don't have the extra time in my life to make kind of that big of a theme happen. Um, so in 5 years, I would love to be able to take First Grade Fight Club on the road more, and I also um, want more cybergrind out there.
Sure.
I'd love to. The thing is, cybergrind hit a really big peak of a lot of artists starting off like 4 years ago, and
Mhm.
it's kind of plateaued a little bit.
Sure.
I would love more people just trying it out
Yeah.
and being able to play with them too.
Sure.
Like I would love to be what Blind Equation is for me. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily that I'm inspiring people to start making music,
Sure.
but just it'd be fun to just go play a random show
Yeah.
and someone's just starting out. It's their first show, and I'd get to be like, wow, this is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I'm currently like the newbie every show, like in terms of how long I've been doing it or to the scene. Like the last show I played, there's a touring band called Godot, Godot, from Texas. They're a mathcore band,
Mhm.
and they asked me and a couple other Salt Lake acts to open, and it was the best show I've played so far. It was such a fun show. It was great times. But the other two bands that are local, one only started a year ago and they're already touring,
Mhm.
and then the other band has been around for like 10 years. So even though I'm just like a solo guy, it was like I'll play first because I'm not in a full band. Um, so like I would love to be able to mix things up a little bit more in terms of just what artists I'm associated with, what artists I get connected with. But yeah, like just keep going, keep on trucking.
Good for you, Chris. Well, Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Everybody, I will have the links in the description to your TikTok, your Instagram, streaming services. If you love his music, please buy it on Bandcamp. I strongly encourage it. Check out your
Thank you.
merch. Are you gonna release another blockbuster 3 disc album thing? I love that. Or was that a one-time thing? Or are you gonna put that back
So
out?
the Cuddle Monster Records is going to
Yeah.
be doing another one, another release, and it's actually just going to be the same one. We talked about making maybe a little bit different, but we want to do just the same copy because I've had so many people ask for a second
Oh my
round.
God, it's the coolest.
So that'll be. I'm not sure when. I'm guessing within the next few weeks,
Okay, cool.
probably in 4 weeks ish.
All right,
But
I'll,
yeah,
I'll,
there
I'll
there will
post
be
it.
another round.
All right,
Yeah,
great. Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
awesome, dude. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.